Quartermain earthquake. Veronica's bombshell, Tracis Brink, and Cody's calculated gambit. The Quartermain mansion has survived corporate raids, power outages, marriages of convenience, and the occasional Thanksgiving disaster. But nothing quite prepares a legacy house for the moment someone announces the deed might change hands. That is the tremor Veronica Bard sets off when she steps into the foyer with impeccable poise and a statement that rattles the banister. The future of the estate is no longer a given. The message is as elegant as it is ruthless, and it lands like a gavel strike in a family accustomed to bargaining but allergic to surrender. Whispers spiral immediately toward the name on everyone's lips. Drew Kane, because in Port Charles, nothing is ever just real estate. Property means power. A roof can be a throne. A legacy on the line. For the Quartermains, a mansion is more than square footage. It is their mythology in granite: births, funerals, deals, betrayals, laughter echoing down corridors where oil portraits keep score. Veronica knows this history and uses it like a violin, bowing one taut note. Change is coming. She does not rage, she doesn't need to. A calm declaration in that house is more dangerous than a slammed door. If the deed were to leave Quartermain control, even to someone as entangled with the family as Drew, the symbolism would send ripples through boardrooms and bloodlines alike. Stocks fluctuate on less. Reputations collapse on smaller slights. Why Drew, and why now? Drew Kane is not a villain in this calculus. He's a man with resources, influence, and a history threaded into the Quartermain tapestry. In a city filled with opportunists, Drew is a paradox: principled enough to want stewardship, ambitious enough to know it must be earned, and pragmatic enough to pay for it. If Veronica's move is a test, Drew is the kind of buyer who can pass the inspection. Yet that is precisely why the announcement hits like a betrayal. When a legacy teeters, the fear isn't that it falls to a stranger, it's that it passes to someone you like, someone you might even trust, and still feels like a loss. The pain is in how reasonable it sounds. Tracy at the edge of a glass. No one reads the room faster than Tracy Quartermain, and nothing blurs a crisis like the burn of something expensive in crystal. Tracis' retreat into alcohol is not a surrender, it's an old reflex: shield first, then strike. The hypocrisy of Veronica, Ronnie to her detractors, and lately to those who whisper about her own vices, accusing others of excess, is not lost on Tracy. But the barb lands, the accusation lingers, and the optics are terrible. A Quartermain matriarch drinking while the deed of the house hangs in limbo looks, to outsiders, like a family splintering along the grain. To insiders, it looks like Tracy bracing herself to do something dramatic. When Tracy drinks, she is not numb, she is loading ammunition. Enter Cody Bell, reluctant white knight. Cody Bell was not raised by the Quartermain code or bound by their history. That is exactly why he can be useful now. His first move is not to posture but to knock on a lawyer's door. It is a quiet scene with thunder embedded in it. A man without centuries of family legacy attempting to learn the rules of the house he's about to help save. The legal consult raises unromantic questions: title encumbrances, trust instruments, right of first refusal, protective covenants, donor restrictions. Cody wades through it anyway. The implication is unmistakable. He is not just moral support, he is preparing to be strategically dangerous on Tracis' behalf. The shape of a legal counteroffensive. If Veronica intends to sell, Cody wants to know who can stop her and on what grounds. Are there bylaws in the family trust that require a Quartermain successor? Is there a stipulation buried in a codicil about cultural preservation or charitable access that would complicate a sale? Could the mansion be designated historically significant, forcing new ownership to maintain the property without altering its character, thereby making it a less attractive prize? A lesser ally brings tissues. Cody brings leverage. He is after pressure points, injunction thresholds, notice requirements, and the dull but decisive power of paperwork. In a fight for a house, the sharpest weapon may be a semicolon. Cody and Tracy find the same frequency. The oddity of this moment is how natural Cody and Tracis' rapport becomes under stress. He doesn't patronize her, she doesn't hide from him. They share glances that acknowledge the absurdity of needing a flowchart to protect a living room. Tracis' gratitude is not effusive, she is still Tracy, but it's real. She allows him to speak to counsel. She lets him question her assumptions. She tolerates his presence when she is at her most raw. That is support in Quartermain. Not hugging, but handing over the file and saying, if you're going to help, help for real. And Cody does. Veronica's calculus, and the clock. Veronica's power lies not only in what she declares but when she declares it. Timing matters. If she intends to leave Port Charles, and rumors sharpen into hints that she might, then her announcement becomes both a threat and a farewell gift. Sell before departure, and the transaction closes on her terms. Leave without selling, and the mansion becomes a cliffhanger, a sword suspended over Thanksgiving, Christmas, and any future family gathering where place cards double as battle lines. Either way, Veronica forces the Quartermains to play her tempo. The family hears the tick-tick-tick and hates her for it, and perhaps admires the precision. The Drew variable. Where is Drew in this whirlwind? Calculating, yes, but not predatory. He understands optics. Buying the house makes him its guardian in one narrative, its usurper in another. He also understands Veronica. If her motive is liquidity or leverage, he can offer alternatives, bridge financing, leaseback arrangements, phased stewardship that preserves Quartermain decision-making while stabilizing the property's finances. He can be the buyer, but he can also be the buffer. The question for Drew is not, can I acquire, but, should I? And if he answers yes, can he do it in a way that lets Tracy look out over her own gardens and still call them home? Tracis' quiet reckoning. Alone, after the glasses are cleared and the staff feigns normalcy, Tracy faces the simple, brutal logic of legacy. You do not inherit a house, you inherit the responsibility to defend it. She knows she cannot fight on sentiment. Judges do not rule in favor of nostalgia. So she calls the attorney, she authorizes the search for protective covenants, and she stops pouring. Not because Veronica is right about her, but because Tracy refuses to let a rumor become a narrative weapon. Strength, in this family, is not the absence of vulnerability, it is the capacity to turn vulnerability into a plan. # strategies on the table. By morning, Cody has options to present. 1 is aggressive. Seek a temporary restraining order to halt any sale pending a full review of trust obligations. Another is elegant. Petition to place the mansion under a historic preservation framework that binds any future deed holder to maintain the estate's public, charitable, or cultural uses, effectively minimizing the benefit of a transfer out of Quartermain hands. A third is relational. Invite Drew into a structured partnership rather than an outright sale, an arrangement that buys Veronica her exit while protecting the house under terms Tracy can live with. The best strategies in Port Charles rarely annihilate opponents, they realign incentives. # The rumor of departure. If Veronica is poised to exit town, the dynamic changes again. People departing Port Charles often tie up loose ends with a flourish, exposing secrets, cashing in IOUs, executing audacious endgames that ripple long after they are on a plane. Veronica's bombshell could be exactly that. A burst of leverage designed to reconfigure the Quartermain power map before she slips away. Or it could be a test of the family's unity, a question posed in the cruelest possible way. What will you do to each other when I pull this floorboard? Whether she leaves with a sale or with a smirk depends on how swiftly Tracy and her allies can shift from outrage to orchestration. # Cody's quiet heroism. Cody will never be the loudest voice at that table, but in the space between Veronica's declaration and any signed deed, he becomes indispensable. He listens to lawyers. He translates the law into actions. He puts his own standing on the line to pursue filings that carry reputational weight. He does the thing so few do for the Quartermains, help without demanding the spotlight. If the house is saved, he will be thanked. If it is lost, he will be blamed by no one. But Cody himself will know the truth, that when the legacy was endangered, he reached for the boring, brutal tools that actually move outcomes. # Drew's counteroffer. There is a version of this story in which Drew writes a check and the house changes hands with a photo op on the steps. But that version would stain everything. The better version, and the one Cody's research makes possible, is more nuanced. Drew could propose a stewardship trust that places the mansion's core identity beyond any single person's whims. Veronica receives the liquidity she wants. The Quartermains retain ceremonial and practical control. The city benefits from a preserved landmark. And Drew becomes an architect of stability rather than a conqueror. In soap terms, it's almost suspiciously rational. In real terms, it's exactly the kind of deal that outlasts gossip. # Tracis answer. The day Veronica expects capitulation, Tracy delivers a folder. Inside, a preservation petition ready for filing, a trust amendment drafted for negotiation, and a contingent partnership framework addressed to Drew Kane. No pleading. No histrionics. Just a series of decisions that make it harder to strip the house of its meaning. Veronica, who respects a worthy adversary, reads the documents with a cool, private smile. The game is still hers to play, but Tracy has put guardrails on the board. If the mansion is to move, it will travel a narrow road, one paved by Trace's sobriety and Cody's diligence. Veronica's last word, for now. Whether Veronica actually leaves Port Charles tomorrow or simply retreats long enough to sharpen her next move, her impact is already indelible. She forced a reckoning, dragged complacency into daylight, and reminded the Quartermaines that a legacy is only as strong as the paperwork protecting it and the people willing to enforce that paperwork. If she exits, she does so knowing she extracted maximum attention. If she stays, it means she has decided there is more power to harvest. Either way, she has turned the mansion from a backdrop into the plot. What this means for Port Charles. The practical fallout is immediate. ELQ strategists whisper about investor confidence, the mayor's office eyes the preservation angle, society columnists draft think pieces on the house that built a city. For fans of the Quartermaine saga, the stakes are perfection. This is not Thieves in the Night, it's Contracts at Noon. It's the realization that in a town where secrets usually topple people, the simplest threat in the world, I might sell, can topple a dynasty if no one answers it with law, leverage, and love. The final image. Picture the mansion at dusk. Lights in the upper hall, a figure crossing behind a curtain, the front door closed as if it has teeth. On the table sits Trace's glass, empty, and next to it, Cody's legal memos, dog-eared and underlined. Somewhere in the city, Veronica zips a suitcase or snaps shut a briefcase. Either way, she believes she dictated terms. Somewhere else, Drew studies a partnership proposal that would let him be necessary without being destructive. The house waits. It has seen Quartermaines come and go, fortunes swell and recede, vows forged and broken. Tonight, it measures resolve. If Ronnie truly intends to sell, this is how you stop her, not with pleas, but with plans. If she is truly leaving Port Charles, this is how you make her exit a coda rather than a coup, by making sure the legacy she tried to leverage becomes the legacy you learned to protect. And if tomorrow brings another shock, and it will, then at least the Quartermaines will be facing it from the foyer of their own home, with the front door still theirs to open.